Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rachel Crocker, and I am the director of the Albany County Public Library. For the people in the room, you've already heard my thank you for enjoying our beautiful art. For the people online, I will explain that you are seeing some lovely murals behind you that our community has put as a celebration for a brand new renovation that we were doing in this room. But we thought, what better way to share space than to share space? So nothing formal tonight, just a lot of fun and important things. I always like to share our mission, which feels particularly apt today. So our mission is to build meaningful connections, inspire growth, cultivate curiosity, and enhance community. And I think between public art and hosting a candidate forum, we are thoroughly checking all of those boxes tonight. We really love partnering with the League of Women Voters to bring candidates in to allow, library is about connecting people to information, and what better way than to get to hear directly from our candidates about what they have in mind for our community. So thank you for joining us in the room. For those of you streaming online, whether live or at some point in the future, thank you for joining us. You will see that we have one candidate and hopefully two eventually popping in to join us online, and we're glad. It's a slightly awkward setup, so thank you for enduring that with us, but we're glad that we can offer that opportunity. So just a quick reminder, logistics for everyone. Again, candidates, make sure that you are using your mics. We'll control volume. You don't need to be too close to the mic, but just be in the general direction so we make sure that we get you on video and that our candidates who are online can hear you as well. And again, we're dealing with Zoom and live sync, so things might go a little wonky, and if they do, we're gonna do our best to fix it as quickly as we can, so thank you for your patience. And I will just end with a candidate's thank you. It has been a great pleasure to host all of these, but we appreciate you guys joining us tonight, but we also appreciate you running, throwing your hat in the ring, and contributing to our community in this way. So I'm going to turn it over to Lynn.
So, good evening. This is our last forum for the season. I find it so hard to believe. All right, this is the 10th forum for us for this cycle. And I want to thank, of course, the library and Rachel and Shane, our tech guy, and all of you for coming. Some of you, I've seen you here many, many times. It's always nice to have faces to look at, right, when you're answering questions. I should say, though, you can also find us online. There's live recording. So you know somebody's home, quick, call them and tell them to see it live. Or they can watch a recording, either on public TV, channel 191. The city has a Facebook page that's there. But I think the best place is just to go to the homepage of the library, and you'll see all these indications about the forum and where to go and what to see. All right, so I was going to say one last time that Rachel leaves it to me to mention that at a national level, the League of Women Voters and the American Library Association have partnered. So we're officially partners in all things voting. And even though they've not sent us any literature, maybe next time around we'll get some of the literature. But anyway, so it's more than just Wyoming. Let's see, why have I got Saturday written down? No, I do. The voter guide is coming out this Saturday as an insert in the Boomerang. Now that won't be the only place, it'll be online also. And I think after it's passed a little bit, the league and the library will post copies. Am I right, Katie? Yes. So we'll let the Boomerang sell their papers, and then we'll put up copies. All right? And I should thank the Boomerang, because for over 50 years, they pay for this printing. They and the advertising they can get. We don't pay a penny. and they even help with all the composing. Sometimes they do a lot of it, sometimes they do some, but it's always there, their help and guidance. All right, questions. Oh, well, let me do what I always do in the front. I'd like to invite people who are running for another office this time, or you're sitting in an elected office, or you're a member of an appointed commission or board. Would you please come up front? Because the audience can't see you out there, and then introduce yourselves. Okay? Up. There we go.
Good evening. I'm Thad Hoff. I'm one of the candidates for county commissioner, and I want to wish all the candidates here good luck. I know how nerve-wracking it is to be the first person to get the question right off the bat. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Brandon Newman. I'm your current Ward 2 City Council member, and I will echo what he said. I don't want to be in your seats tonight.
That'll be 2 years from now, right? All right, so you've seen some of our past elected, and they do understand, and we understand, so not to worry. Vote 411. If you're a candidate for any office and you've decided that you don't quite like how you answered the questions on Vote 411, which is a platform facilitated by the National League of Women Voters, you can go back anytime up to and probably past the election date and edit your own site. We don't do any of that, and the league doesn't. So it's up to you to design and to answer that. Yes, I already said about the recordings. Oh, and please don't record the session here. There are plenty of places to see it. We're just, well, the National League doesn't like it, and we're always afraid, I think everyone's afraid that snippets of it might get into a candidate ad or something like that. I wanted to remind you about the fire district. I know that we don't think about them, and until I started doing forums, I didn't even know about them. But we have 3 districts that are elected in this city. There is the hospital board. They're elected. There is the Rivers district, and there's the fire districts. Now, our first forum this time was for the districts. Well, we had only 2 people for multiple seats in 3 different races. And I would tell you that, well, 1, those candidates were wonderful. You should go back and take a look at them. But 2, nobody is running for the fire district. So that means there's going to be a write-in. You could be a person who organizes a write-in. And I would add that the fire district, the current fire district members are having a meeting on October 18th. And you can look it up as well as I did. You might want to attend and remind them that they don't have a candidate. All right. And there's always the idea that you could join the League of Women Voters. We have a bunch of male members. 2 of them are up here. There are timekeepers. I'll introduce them. All right, so Al, put your hand back up. This is my partner, Al Tremblay. He'll be our first half timekeeper. And next to Al, we have Matthew Link, who will be the second half timekeeper. And could one of you hold up the little flag or the little signs? Yes, now when you see 60 seconds, that means you have 60 seconds remaining because they go down. Now it's 30 seconds remaining, but we count down here. And I think most of our questions will be 90 seconds, even though there are so many of you. I really counted on a few of you not being able to attend, but because I didn't necessarily hear from you, but I'm glad you're all here, and I'm sorry you're all so crowded. In any case, we'll try to whip through the answers.
Matt's showing off his elbow room online.
Oh, okay, yes, look at Matt. All right, well, let me then do the last thing. It's my pleasure to introduce Carrie Bennett. She'll be our moderator tonight. She moderated 2 years ago, and she moderated last week, and she is a professional. So what's printed on this handout that I made, Carrie Bennett is a facilitator and a mediator in private practice. She moved to Laramie in 2017, loves the community here, and has vowed never to leave. Outside of work, Carrie wrangles 2 young sons and an unruly garden. She's also on the board of Common Outdoor Ground. It's a local non-practice that organizes volunteer projects on public lands in southeast Wyoming. And they have a lovely website, and if you wanted to look for more, she's easy to find online. So, Carrie? And here's one more question for you.
Oh, more questions. Brilliant. It's not my favorite thing, but one of my favorite things about getting to come here is that my husband gets to put the boys to bed tonight. So thank you so much for this opportunity. It really is a pleasure, though, to get to be with the candidates and to hear the thoughtful questions from the audience that I get to deliver. I will give you fair warning in the audience. I am so grateful for your questions. They are always so good, and we are not going to have a ton of time tonight to get through many of them. So I apologize in advance. I have already started grouping and combining and thinking about how we can squeeze every last ounce of information from these folks in the very limited time we have, and I just apologize in advance for all the questions that we don't get to. Know that you can meet and mingle with the candidates afterwards and pose questions to them then if they don't get asked tonight. All right. Along those lines also, the purpose of these forums is for you to get to understand and know the candidates and their positions on things. It's not a gotcha. Everybody made you afraid in those preliminary remarks. It's my job to make you all look really good and thoughtful and brilliant as you are. So I'm not going to try to get you. The hope is just for voters to get the best information about what's important to you so they can vote according to their own values. So that's the hope for tonight. All right. Let's jump right in then. You didn't come to hear from me. You came to hear from them. I'm going to ask folks to introduce themselves, and we will, oh yeah, sorry. As you're asking questions, just hold them up. Somebody from the league will grab them and deliver them, and I'll try to work them into the rotations. Yeah. I'm going to have you start by introducing yourselves, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the ground running because I think this will fit okay into your introductions. If you would let folks know who you are, you can remind them of what ward you live in, because we're not quite in order here by ward. So if folks in the audience are listening, and you can see the map on the handout that was on your chairs, listen for that so you know who lives in your ward. And I'm going to ask you to say who you are, and the question is, what are some deeply held values that you bring to City Council? What is a guiding light of whatever source that you bring, and how might that impact you in your service on council? Matt, we're going to go ahead and start with you. I'm crossing my fingers that we don't have technical issues. I'll rotate through who starts on each one, and the introductions are just 60 seconds, okay? Matt, go ahead.
All right, Matt Lockhart. I've been in Laramie for 30 plus years. I'm in Ward 3. Thank you for the opportunity to meet via Zoom. As many of you know, my wife had 2 knee surgeries in the last 3 weeks, and she's bedridden. So, and I have 5 and 7-year-old girls. So, thank you for being able to reach out this way. As far as values or a guiding light, I think having a servant attitude and mentality to be able to serve the community. At work, I always want to serve my employees and my customers. But to be on the city council, I believe we need to have the servant mentality that we're taking care of our community. And also, I think the city council serves as a think tank to be able to come up with solutions with community involvement and feedback so we can come up with solutions and ideas to better our community for everyone that lives here. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Ooh, is Melanie on yet? No, okay. With the technical issues we're having getting Melanie to join, we might circle back, so apologies if the order gets weird. We're not trying to favor or disadvantage anybody, it's just internet. So let's go on to Bryan. Bryan, same question to you. Who are you, what ward, and what values do you bring to council?
Hello, my name's Bryan Shuster. I am Ward 3. I have several years' experience on council, 16 years in Laramie. I sat down this week and added it up. My parents moved me here at a very young age, but with all the time in Laramie, it adds up to be over 45 years. I served 4 terms on city council, 16 years. So I've been through the budgeting process and everything like that. I have a wife and 3 kids that all went to school here locally. I joke about it. I went to Slade Grade School, the old Civic Center Junior High, and the Laramie High School that's now torn down in rubble. I believe in ethics, huge amount in believing in ethics of what goes on here in this town. So that would be my statement there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brett, you're next.
All right, thank you. And thanks to the League of Women Voters for having us here. I've enjoyed watching the other forums online. It's just a great forum to get to know the candidates who are running for multiple offices. But so my name is Brett Kahler. I've been a resident of Laramie now for over a decade, and I'm a candidate for City Council in Ward 2. I think to me there's really 2 values that I carry kind of day to day, not to steal Bryan's, but certainly ethics and integrity in the decisions that I make and standing by those decisions. But the second most important one for me would be open-mindedness and understanding that it's very possible I don't have the right answer, and there are folks who are more educated in certain spaces. And if I come into those conversations with open-mindedness, I've found in a lot of ways that there's a lot of common ground. So again, thank you. Really excited to be here, and I'll pass the mic to my left.
Awesome. Jim, you're up next. Same question.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And thanks to the League of Women Voters and the Public Library for letting this happen, and for you all for being here. Yeah, really appreciate it. My name is Jim Freed. I've been in Laramie a little less than Bryan and Matt, about 14 years. And, you know, I came here as a student to the university, and I've stuck around because I've really enjoyed the city and a lot of different aspects of it. But I guess the values that I really resonate well with would be kindness. And I'm wearing my grandma's button. It's the power of kindness. She believes in that everyone has, an opportunity, and everyone should be able to have opportunities that I've had, that we all have here in this community. And I think that would be something I would take into city council is the element of treating each other with respect, finding commonality, and then the other thing I would say would be national service. I'm sure you'll hear it from some of my answers in the future, but I've worked in nonprofits and national service organizations, and the element of service and giving back is something that I hold near and dear to my heart, and that's why I think a lot of us are up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Brett, you're going to have to keep me on track, but we're going down the line. Go ahead, Brett Glass.
Thank you. My name is Brett Glass.
Hang on, I think your microphone isn't on.
Is the mic on?
We'll stop your time. Shane, are we on?
Yes. Check.
There it is. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, good. Okay, my name is Brett Glass. Thank you for all being here tonight, and thanks to League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I have lived in Laramie continuously for 32 years, and more before that, I met my lovely wife, who's in the audience here in Laramie at the Renaissance Fair that they used to have at the university. I'm an electrical engineer and a physicist, and the owner of 2 Laramie businesses, including the world's first wireless internet service provider. I'm also an author, a singer-songwriter, an extra-class ham radio operator, and a lover of good coffee and chocolate. As for principles, I'm an advocate of ethical, transparent, fair, efficient, and responsive government. And my pledge is that I get elected, I am going to listen to everybody, no matter what their political views. I will listen to everyone, and I will be responsive to the community. I will not burn out or stop listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Paul, next to you.
Thank you, Carrie. As I mentioned beforehand, you've got a tough job. I've had her job as a moderator. I used to belong to the League of Women Voters years ago when we lived in Cheyenne, and it's not an easy job to do what she's doing.
I'll make it look easy. I'm going to make it look
You make it look easy, yeah. Thanks to the League of Women Voters and also the library. I'm looking forward to the renovation of this room. That's exciting news. Can't wait to see that. I've told people when we get together that I am running for city council because I've attended city council meetings for about 1.5 years now. And I saw a truly broken system. And that really pushed me into it. At this stage in my life, I really did not want to run for city council. But I do feel I have some things to offer, hopefully in the form of leadership. We're grossly lacking in that type of leadership. We do have the empathy. We have people on city council that are wonderful people, but I don't see them as strong leaders. And because of that, we'll talk tonight about a lot of the issues the city is having now, and hopefully I'll be able to help support if I am elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Sharon, next to you.
Thank you. I'm Sharon Cumbie, and I'm an incumbent. I've been serving on city council for 3.5 years and have been vice mayor for the last 1.5 years. My values are honesty, accountability, respect, and kindness, I believe should govern our actions as elected officials. I'm devoted to communication process, to collaboration, and to engagement to build community by fostering positive working relationships. And that's...
Thank you, Sharon. William, last to you. Who are you, what ward, and what are the values you bring to office?
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, Lynn. Thank you to the league. Thank you to all the candidates. It's a pleasure to be up here with you. What an honor. My name is Will Bowling. I'm a candidate for Ward 1. I am the public program and education person for the UW Art Museum and also the education director for Relative Theatrics of Laramie. If you were here last week, I apologize if this sounds like a little bit of a broken record, but just like Ken Chustek, I was born and raised in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, and that has shaped my values, including respect, service to others, social justice and democracy, community and communication. And it's the job of an elected official to hold the needs of many stakeholders at once and then try to make the decisions that make the most good for the most people. And so that is the way I would approach this position, with openness, with kindness, with communication. Thank you.
Thank you, William. All right, we're going to get into the rest of our questions now. Melanie, still not connected? Okay, just flag me down if and when she does, and I'm keeping track of which one she's missed. So Bryan, you get to start us off for this next first question. We had several budget-related questions. I'm going to try to combine them and then hope for the best. There's awareness of different aspects of the city budget going over projected costs, and also some questions regarding the 7-cent sales tax. As you look at the budget as a whole, what would your priorities be to make sure that the most important services are adequately funded, and how we might adjust both the spending and revenue to keep the budget in balance? 90 seconds. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank the League of Women Voters. I did not do that the first time, so I will now. Budgets, we have a biannual budget, so we budget for 2 years. And then we try to do the most important things first, and I'll just talk about it. Clean water, getting the sewage out of your house, trash disposal, our landfill, so we have to make sure our landfill meets all DEQ requirements. Police, fire department are the critical units. After that, I like parks and rec. I like the bicycle trails, stuff like that. And yes, we went over on our budgets. The cost of living right now, and everybody's felt it. Inflation just went crazy. So every part we've ordered for every piece of equipment, every line that's underground has just skyrocketed. So yes, we've been over our budget. I have seen that a lot. I want to make sure that if I get back on council, our basic human services are always met. After that, it's really nice that we do all the other things. We do our trails, our arts downtown, and things like that. We have a lot of out-of-city funding we do to nonprofits everywhere. The airport, the DDA, downtown, economic development, we keep wanting to bring in things. Thank you.
Bryan, that was an excellent modeling of what to do when your time is up. Thank you. I forgot my shepherd's hook, so thank you. Brett, same question to you. How would you manage, or how would you prioritize things in the city budget and include in that income and spending, if you would?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's a lot longer than 90 seconds of an answer, but we'll try and sum it up. There's a lot of hands in the pot when it comes to the budget, both on the allocation side and the revenue side, right? So funding comes from different places. Obviously, we all think of taxes, but there's also those fees for services for things like Mr. Shuster mentioned, landfill, water usage, things of that nature. And I think it's important that we do prioritize the important pieces of our community, not just for the residents that live here now, but for the potential growth that's going to come down the pike as well. So we're talking obviously the roads, sewers, sidewalks, and I know that the city's doing some major work in the way of sidewalks right now. But I think that there also needs to be some real conversations that occur between the city council and the folks over in Cheyenne. As we know, there's some commingling with the legislature and setting municipal budgets, and we know that one of the largest property owners in our county doesn't pay property taxes. And so, oftentimes we think, well, money's getting sent over the hill to help the university, and so it helps Laramie. And sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes it simply helps the university. And so I think we need to work on making that relationship stronger and really focus on keeping the things that are important to keeping the folks here happy, safe, and healthy.
Thank you, Brett. Jim, same question to you.
Great. Yeah, that's a hard question. One of my experiences in nonprofit management in my career has been building budgets, and there are always estimations of what you're going to spend, how to utilize your funds, and that changes. It's hard, as some folks have expressed here tonight, that it's a complicated issue. I think first and foremost, we need to be making sure that we're getting clean water out of our faucets. We need to be making sure that we're getting snow plowed, trash is being taken out. Those things are givens. Those are things that the whole community can get behind. And as far as, really trying to understand places in the budget that we could reduce, or understanding where we're spending, I think I would really look to the different departments in the city and the managers of those departments that have been working in their own budgets and understanding the needs of the city, and build off what they've been doing and look at the resources that they've been using. Working with our city manager to understand budgetary things that have come up over the time of the city manager being in Laramie. Not trying to reinvent the wheel, but look at what's worked in the past and look what hasn't. Trying to come up with new initiatives and working with the citizens, understanding the needs of the community and where we want our money to be spent, I think is a huge role of the city council. Allowing for input that the city council currently does, and listening to the constituents and hearing your voice and where money should be spent, I think is another really big factor. Thank you.
Thank you. Brett, go ahead.
Yes. Well, as Laramie grows and state funding is cut and inflation continues to take its toll, we're really going to have to stick to our knitting, focusing on the core functions and essential public services that a local government is supposed to provide. We need to concentrate on public health, safety, and welfare. And we need to make sure we take care of our infrastructure. As I've knocked on doors around the city, one of the number one complaint that I've received about the city operations is that it hasn't maintained infrastructures. That people are not happy with the condition of the roads, for example. We're paying exorbitant salaries to an entire tier of middle managers, and that's sapping our resources and not giving us the ability to do what we really need to do. I think we need to have smaller government and better services.
Thank you. Paul, go ahead.
Thank you, Carrie. Job of the city and city council have three primary purposes: public safety, fire and police, roads, streets, safe sidewalks, and water and sewer. After that, everything else is what's left over. And I know that probably upsets a few people because there's a lot of other things the city's paying money for, but the primary things have got to be those three. That's what the city is charged with. We've got a situation now where we're spending money on things, and things have turned upside down that have to be solved. We've got a rec center in this last budget that is requiring $1.25 million to keep it afloat. where 4 years ago it was costing $300,000. That is not sustainable, and those are the words of Jennifer Wade, who's our financial person for the city. We've got to fix those things. We've got to fix the sidewalks. We don't have safe sidewalks. We have 10% of our streets that have remained unpaved for many years. Those have got to be the issues we deal with. The current city council is not doing their job in allocating the funds in a way that sets those priorities. And we need to rectify that by electing candidates that are looking for change. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Sharon, same to you, city budgets and how we keep them in balance.
Thank you. Dealing with budget is a very complicated issue, and we have to balance what we want, what we essentially need, and what the finances that are available. I think number one, we have to promote public safety. And then the second is to build infrastructure. And we cannot grow and develop economically unless we have the infrastructure built and taken care of. The city has been working consistently and proactively over the last 5 to 7 years to work on our water and sewer infrastructure, and we have brought it up to more of a state-of-the-art condition. This had to be done first, the deeper infrastructure, before we can address the roads. 7 years ago, we were having 140 plus breaks per year of the water system. This year, we are down to 40. We are making tremendous advancement, and I believe that we need to stick with our plan of being proactive and being responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of what we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. William, same to you.
Good question. More needs than there are funds. Sounds like my household. Probably sounds like a lot of households in here. This is a super complicated question, and I agree with a lot of the other candidates up here that it's important to prioritize things like public health, public safety, infrastructure. I also think that when a city invests in community needs in terms of outdoor recreation opportunities, cultural opportunities, that those are the things that make a city worth living and a place worth living. And if we want to continue to have a vibrant community, then we're going to need to hold those as factors as well. I think when it comes to the issue of declining revenues, I agree with Jim over here in that, like, it's best to look at the heads of city departments who are actually in there and doing the nitty-gritty to figure out where we might be able to make cuts. Obviously, city councilors don't actually run those programs. They oversee it at a bird's eye view, and we don't have a nuanced understanding of those everyday costs. I would say, because I don't think it was addressed, that a 7-cent tax increase, I believe a sales tax to be regressive in the regards that that costs money to the most vulnerable amongst us, and I would not recommend that as a way to increase revenue.
Thank you. Appreciate the attention to detail on that, and I know Matt just had a humph of recognition in that. I don't know if it's an agreement or disagreement, but Matt, same.
Well, I totally agree. I think 7% would be out of line. So I mean, 6%. It's tough, especially when someone goes buys a car or something like that. So this is a great question. It's almost a loaded question because it could take an hour to try to even dive into it. But I look at it from a citizen standpoint and as a business owner. Of course, we want health and we want the safety of our community. I mean, who doesn't, right? But also, I kind of look back about 10, 15 years ago when we had the housing crisis and whatever, and I was involved with a car dealership. And all of a sudden, all the expenses went this high and our revenue was going down. So you got to go find what we call gross leaks. Where are we spending money that we don't need? Okay. Who needs to be held accountable for those funds? Who are we paying to do what jobs? Also, I think this is tied to, we need to grow the community. We need affordable housing. We need to be able to bring other industry besides UW into town to grow so we get more revenue, more property tax, more sales tax revenue, more spending. So to me, it's a loaded question in the sense that there's just so many possibilities here. But I look at it as we got to find out where we need to spend the most money, where we don't need to spend as much money, but we just need to grow the town with more community citizens. And that right there will bring us more revenue, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And just to be clear, I think the question was a 7th cent sales tax. I don't know if that's the same as 7%. I don't know how it works. Y'all can discuss later, but I just wanted to clarify that on the question. I think we've done our job. If everybody said good question, good job, audience, great question so far. And also, yes, all of these things could have a much longer conversation. So thank you so much for giving this as thorough of an answer as you can in the limited time that we have. All right, I'll give you one guess. There's 4 cards all asking about housing. Brett.
Bryan can take it.
Brett, you get to go first on this one. So there's all of you touched on quality of life and the affordability. We were thinking of affordability of what the city can pay for previously. But as you think about Laramie's residents, what action would you support to ensure that Laramie residents can enjoy a safe, high quality of life and also an affordable place to live? People asked specifically about your support for the rental ordinance, asking about your view on mobile home parks, rent control. There's a whole slew of potential policy things in 90 seconds or less.
That's easy, right?
What would you support in terms of making sure that housing is both affordable and safe for our residents?
Yeah, thanks for that. Those 45 questions. No, I think for me, I tend to stay away from affordable because I think that means something for everybody else. And I've heard other folks say, accessible housing. I think that's what's really important. I think the city, as from the city council perspective, has really two main roles. One, a lot of people say get out of the way, but we all know that the city council does have some regulatory oversight in certain things. That comes to zoning and setbacks and things like that. And I think the city council has done a fairly decent job in some regards, but there's always room for that to improve. My day job is in economic development across the state, and we hear this in communities across Wyoming, so it's not just unique to Laramie, but the reality is developers, if they find it tough to develop in a certain space, are going to go somewhere else where it's a little easier to get the job done. And so our city council needs to make it as attractive as possible to develop here, and we need to then get the developers in here and work towards getting our housing inventory up. That's a critical piece. Obviously, a supply and demand issue when it comes to economics, and our supply is low, demand is high, and so that I think is the space city council needs to exist in.
Thank you, Jim. Same question to you. Housing, what do you think?
Yeah. Wow, there's a lot there. It's no secret that housing costs are high, and that there's been a ton of housing studies done for the city of Laramie since 2015, I think almost a dozen, that shows that there's a need for housing of all kinds. Single family units, multiple family units, apartments, that's not the question. So how do we get there? And I think there's ways the city can impact that, providing incentives for developers to, build the houses that we decide with community input, ease restrictions in certain areas, and then also identifying corridors, I think, for diverse styles of housing. Not single-family units, maybe on Grand or Third, in corridors where we have industry, where we're not going in the middle of the tree district and putting a 5-story apartment complex or something. So I think we have the opportunity to really assess that, look at what's been done in these studies, and build off that. And those are just some of the solutions that have been provided. And I know the city planning department has been looking at those, and they've put these studies out. In terms of renters protection ordinance, yeah, I would love to continue on what's been done by the city, publishing that renters ordinance and ensuring that everyone has access to safe and affordable housing options, while making sure that we're not putting that burden on others, including those renters or down the line the city for affordable housing options and renting options. But I could go on, but I'll pass it on.
Thank you. Brett, same to you.
Yes, how many hours do we have to discuss this? Okay, it's a big question, and we have several interrelated housing challenges, but the two biggest challenges are affordability and overregulation. Let's talk about affordability first. Recent city council actions on housing have needlessly made it less affordable They've imposed overly restrictive contractor licensing, which limits the number of builders and tradespeople who can work in the city. This makes building more difficult, slower, and more expensive. We need to rescind this so that we can get things built and fixed. The city has also eliminated single-family zoning everywhere in Laramie. This has caused developers to create HOAs with expensive fees, so it's actually driven housing costs up, not down. Now, regulation is also a big concern. The city's UDC, or Uniform Development Code, keeps getting bigger and harder to satisfy each year. I recently talked to one developer who just gave up on a project because he couldn't get past the red tape. And overregulation of rental housing has driven up rent, extracted something like $160,000 from renters' pockets, and it's taken many perfectly safe and desirable housing units off the market. We're about to have a serious housing shortage because of that ordinance, because a tremendous number of rentals will become illegal if we don't look at how we can make them legal and still safe. In any case, let's see, am I out of time? How much time do I have? 5, 4, 3. Oh boy, I could talk about this for an hour. Yes. But in any case, I think the City Council needs to think about the consequences of its action before it makes the problems worse rather than better.
Thank you, Brett. And apologies again for the limited time. Paul, go ahead.
Thank you. Brett's very knowledgeable on this. So is the other Brett. I think they've hit the nail on the head. These are issues that we've got to deal with in the city. And we have a situation right now where it is very difficult to build if you live in the city. I've talked to many stakeholders involved, contractors, developers. Most recently, I talked to New Life Church. New Life Church is building up on north of town in the county. They looked at 3 properties in the city. They found difficult situations in dealing with our city planners and the building department. It's expensive, and they elected to build in the county. I've talked to contractors who used to build in the city all the time, no longer do because of a lot of our building codes and because of our building and planning staff. I've talked to contractors here in town that wait months to get a building permit. These are things the city can control. There's some things the city can't control. Interest rates are always going to be an impediment. Supply costs are high now. There are ways that if we can get enough contractors together, we could they could group buy a lot of this and lower their costs there. So we just need a cooperative effort. But the first thing we need to do is get out of the way of these people and get a very efficient city planning office and building construction codes.
Thank you, Paul. Sharon, same to you.
Thank you. Housing, as everyone has said, is a very complicated issue, and it's an issue that we've been discussing for decades, and it's one that council has been working on consistently for the last 3 years. During our process, we began to recognize that there were a number of groups, at least 8, in the city working on housing issues, and that everyone was siloed. We began to recognize that because we were invited to start attending some of these meetings. We have since, over the past 4 months, pulled together the Laramie Housing Coalition that combines people who have broad representation from our community, and it includes people from business, from regulation, from developers, housing advocates, and council commission members, to try to get everyone in the same room talking about how we might address that, to analyze, to suggest solutions, and to explore possibilities. And I would say that currently those meetings are made up of about 35 different representatives, and it continues to be an open meeting where we are trying to find solutions that are grounded in our community and that are appropriate for us. Thank you.
Thank you. William, same question to you.
If there was an easy answer to this, then we would have done it already. It might be the most complicated issue facing the entire country right now. It's a personal one for me. I'm 41 years old. I'm a professional. I'm married. I have no children, and I cannot afford to buy a home in Laramie, Wyoming. Now, that's for a number of reasons, factors that are not in control of city council. But housing is not just about the affordability of homes, it's about the affordability of rent. It's about renter safety and renter protection. I do support the rental ordinance. I do think it's a critical public safety measure, and I do not think that it's that onerous on local landlords. We could work to make that better and less onerous if possible. What do? I think accessory dwelling units that the city council has also already approved is a start. We can look at infill. We can look at deregulation and zoning deregulation if it's not at the expense of public safety and public infrastructure. The long term of this is, quite frankly, is that we will not meet our demand by 2030 for the housing costs that the housing that we will need. So we will have to build denser housing. Where we do that, how we do that, what it looks like, those are all questions that are up for debate. But the fact of the matter is we do not have enough, and we will reach a tipping point. So.
Thank you. Matt, same question to you. What would you support for housing safety and affordability?
Well, I could say ditto, because everybody has basically said what I'd like to say. But, I've met with several contractors and developers over the last few months. And, if you got, like Sharon was saying, you got everybody in the same room talking about it with the city planners, with all the people that make the codes. And you're gonna hear a lot of the same stuff. Like a lot of the developers and contractors are going out into the county to build homes because it's too expensive in town. I think it's sad when someone like William can't afford to buy a new house. The American dream is to buy a house, get married, have kids, buy a house, and can't even own a house. So, one of my ideas I've talked to people about is how about the city start buying some land and doing the infrastructure cost, then selling it cheaper to contractors or developers or landowners or people who want to build a house so they can afford to build a house. They incur the cost because these developers will buy a piece of land. And these costs for infrastructure are outrageous. When I saw a tiny house for sale recently, a tiny house for like $250,000, you got to ask, what is wrong with Laramie? There's a lot wrong, and I can't answer it all in 90 seconds. But I think we need, like an old town hall meeting, get all parties involved, and let's talk about this over and over and over till we can come up with solutions. But we got to listen to our community and what the real problems are, not just guessing what they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Bryan, I think you're the last one on this question.
Yes, I am, and I've watched this over the years. It's been a lot of talk. I'm sorry to say that. Have we hurt the building industry? Yes. You now have to have a license to be able to build a house. They have 3 different licenses, A, B, and C. You have one license to do remodels. You have another license to be able to build a house, and you have another license if you're going to build a business. So we have hurt them. We have a lot less developers now. Like they said, it's easier and cheaper to build outside of the city. To hook water and sewer to your house is a tremendous cost. And then now if you build a house, you take it yourself and you've hired a contractor and you build it, you have to pay for your sidewalks and you have to pay for street out in front of it. The developers do that. When they develop a whole section, they have to put in their streets, their sewer, their water, the sidewalks, everything before it can sell to a customer. Got to jump off of that. The rental agreement with the city, there are things that the state is looking at, and they might change it for us by their rules, not ours. We just got some of our USAC funding. We're going to try to build Bill Nye from the high school clear over to 30th Street. If that happens, that will open up several hundred acres that can now be developed. Trying to find property is tough.
Thank you very much. So, double checking that I got everybody on that. Jim, you're in the hot seat now.
All right.
Do you like being in the hot seat, everybody? Is it, no?
It's the best, yeah.
Oh, switching timers, thank you. So pay attention over here now on the timer sign. Thank you for that. It is really hard to stay focused and concentrate for that job. So cheers, they have the really hard job. Bryan just mentioned the decisions at the state legislature and how those may impact things locally. Wyoming, as we all know, maybe, has home rule on paper, where most things are left to the local municipalities to decide. But there's always that tension with decisions made over in Cheyenne and the state legislature. What do you see your role in fighting for home rule, regardless of how you feel about the rental ordinance? What do you see as that best balance of power between city and county governments and what the state legislature decides to do? Jim, you get to start us off.
Yeah, great question. Another great question.
Brilliant audience.
I think in a lot of situations, not to only focus on the rental ordinance, but that's, one where you can solve problems at a local level. We have information that can support our community without relying on the state to do so. As we all know, governments can take time on getting things enacted and how they move. And so in my mind, if we can solve things at a local level and we can provide rental ordinance and safeties and protections and knowledge, that's huge. I think the state is always going to have ways to be a part of our community, and there's things that are out of our control. We can't worry about what they can take away from us or add to our community. All we can do is try to focus on what the city council can do for the citizens here. And I think providing home rule protections in the instance of the rental ordinance and other things like that, we should always be doing so. We should try to do effective leadership and management at the local level as low as we can. Thanks.
Thank you. Brett.
Well, we in Wyoming are the equality state. We believe that everyone should have equal rights and be treated equally under the law. So if local governments impose very different regimes upon their residents, we no longer have that equality. In fact, the rules can vary completely when you step over the city limits into the county. We don't want that. Local government can and should have some autonomy when it comes to fixing the streets, providing city utilities, maintaining parks, encouraging economic development. But matters involving things like rights, such as tenants' rights, property owners' rights, or the right to pursue a profession, those should be handled at the state level. Now, WAM, the Wyoming Association of Municipalities, is a powerful lobbying group which always lobbies to give city bureaucrats as much power as possible. And this has the effect, unfortunately, of creating big government on the local level. We need to resist this agenda, or our state's going to be broken up into bureaucratic fiefdoms, and there'll be no consistency and no equality, either between residents of different cities or between city residents and county residents. So we need to make sure that our government sticks to its knitting and does local things well, and doesn't waste our limited funds by building a huge overbearing bureaucracy that ventures into areas that really are beyond its proper scope.
Thank you, Brett. Paul, same question to you.
Thank you. We don't have much choice when it comes to home rule. We go by whatever our state constitution and what state statutes dictate. So we have to live within those boundaries. Everyone in this room probably already knows that. Where we do have control is on a local level in the people that are administering the government and are setting standards, setting regulations, setting ordinances. And really, to Brett's point, it's a situation where if that's broken, then we've got another problem we've got to deal with locally. Right now, we have a situation where we have always had a city manager overseeing the city. I strongly feel, and I think there's other people on this table that feel that we need to move toward an elected mayor form of government. We need somebody that's accountable. We can't have somebody that has a job position that's guaranteed to them, pays them $183,000 a year, and no way to let them go out of their contract without 5 members of the city council authorizing that. So we need to deal with our local government first in how we run it, and if that's successful, then home rule shouldn't matter that much. So I strongly recommend that we look that direction, and we need to hold our elected officials accountable.
Thank you. Sharon, same question to you.
Thank you, and I'm going to stick with a question on home rule. I think that, especially in Laramie, that we do have some issues that come up where the legislature imposes their opinion and their desires and demands on the city despite the welfare and well-being of our community. And sometimes the city of Laramie and the university come to conflict about things such as water, water rights, water for the golf course, and coming out of the city water system, which then burdens every member of our community because water is an enterprise fund, must support itself. So when the university abandons that and the legislature puts through statute that allows them to go into the aquifer to water the golf course, and they come out of the water system, then that cost begins to go to all the other members of our community. It's an enterprise fund and it must pay for itself. So when they bypass the community, this is just one example of when we don't have home rule, when we are dictated by a state legislature who may be imposing things that are more appropriate for other communities, we get in trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. William, same question to you.
Yeah, I love this question. It all the way back to the 10th Amendment. It's like a legislative concept, essentially. And call it home rule, call it local government, call it what you will. But I think the role of the state legislature is to hold the needs of an entire state constituency at one time, and to hold those needs broadly, hold those public safety measures broadly, and not to assume that they understand that the needs of a 4-person household in Sheridan are the same as the needs of a 4-person household in Cheyenne. That is the right and the role of local governments and local municipalities to make those decisions. So.
Thank you. Matt, same question to you. Home rule and how we balance that power.
Well, I love what William just said. So every community in Wyoming and even across the United States is different, right? We're different than Rawlins. We're different than Rock Springs. We're different than Sheridan. So we do have to follow some state laws and regulations, of course. But you know, if we go back to the rental ordinance, what may work in Cheyenne may not work in Laramie or may not work in Sheridan. So as an elected official, we need to, again, go back to listening to our community and seeing what best fits them. And then also we got to get some people involved to go over to Cheyenne and speak to them too. So, you know, I don't have a real defined answer on this, but we do need to have some autonomy for each community because, again, we're a university town, so there's 45% or more that are rentals over here. So that's a lot different than if you drive to, say, Rock Springs. So we have a lot different needs than, say, a community like Rock Springs or Sheridan or Casper. So I guess that's how I answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Bryan, go ahead.
Thank you. Being on council so long, I've seen home rule hurt us a couple times. And one of them, we used to have a donut outside of the city by so many miles. And after a while, some people got really upset and went and talked to the legislature. And we ended up losing that donut. It was a 5-mile donut, and we no longer have it to where we could work. We still work good with the county. On others, just what they said. We had a well proposed in an area. We put in a new north side tank project so that Laramie can grow and have water. We had the property that we were going to have to cross with pipelines. We had that all authorized. And then the university said they no longer wanted our water. They wanted to dig their own well, and the legislature over there gave them money. They dug a well. It was unsuccessful. They dug another well. It was unsuccessful. They dug a third well right next to the well that we were going to use to fill our North Tank project, and said that we would be great neighbors and we would share those water. And then the next week, they had one of their representatives file a lawsuit to let us not use that well. We're not good neighbors with them. I wish the legislature would support us a little bit, just besides supporting the university. I would like to see what works for the many and not the few.
Thank you, Bryan. Brett, I think you have the last pass on this
All
one.
right, thank you. I think that there's a case to be made probably for some regulations to be housed within the state, but I have a real opposition to the idea that if our city comes up with an ordinance or a regulation or a code that is disliked by a few residents, that they go over the hill and ask Cheyenne to fix it. I have an issue with our residents doing that, and I would have an issue with residents in other communities doing that too, and asking the state to fix an issue in their community that might adversely impact Laramie. If we talk about tax structure, the state's tax structure, as it was created, was meant to benefit municipalities well over benefiting the state, and that's been eroded over time. And that's why we find ourselves in a little bit of the position we do today. Just yesterday I learned that the cemetery is trying to get the state to change the regulations for columbariums. If you didn't know this, it's basically where interment of ashes occurs, because there's a state regulation that's prohibiting our cemetery from building one of those in the way that they need to. So I think the folks who know the community best are the folks who should make that decision. And when you talk about bureaucracy of government, Laramie City Council is a heck of a lot more agile, meeting every 2 weeks, than the state legislature is when they meet for 20 or 40 days every other year. So thank you.
Thank you, Brett. If you have questions about a donut 5 miles outside of town in my brain that had sprinkles on top, please follow up with Bryan later. And now I have questions about columbariums and the regulatory structure around those. See, aren't we learning together today? So good, so good. All right. Many of you touched on that last question on issues with the aquifer and clean water. The city has a role in how it spends its money, how it manages its resources, et cetera. Whether you're thinking about carbon reduction or management of water, to the degree that that's under the city's control, what would you prioritize in the action that rests at the city council level? Brett Glass, you're up for this one.
Well, in terms of managing resources, I think we're already doing very well. I'm in support of the solar project south of town. I don't know if it's really going to do a huge amount to cut the city's carbon footprint, because there are so many other sources of carbon dioxide that it's almost lost in the noise. Mountain cement being probably the biggest, and the university power plant. But on the other hand, it could save us money in the long run, and I'm certainly in favor of that. So I think that's a good use of resources. Now, in terms of the aquifer, we now have a very good agreement between the city and the county on this, and we put a plan in place. And the good thing is that it's continuing to be refined. Just recently, the county commissioners considered modifications to the aquifer plan, which redirected and I think set the priorities a little bit better. It loosened the restrictions on individual homeowners who were doing small projects, and increased the restrictions on commercial ventures, which could be big polluters. And I thought that was a very good thing. Now, we haven't finished yet. We still need to deal with the possibility of a catastrophic accident on I-80. Which could seriously pollute the aquifer, but hopefully we'll be working on that in the future.
Thank you, Brett. Paul, same question to you.
Again, I get back to the function of the city: public safety, water, and roads. The other things that we're doing, it's great. The solar initiatives that have happened have been really good, because we've been able to do grants with the Blue Sky project, and that's super. I'm glad we're able to take advantage of those. As far as water goes, one thing we do have to remember, whereas I agree with the Casper Aquifer plan, should it be our biggest priority? We get 71% of our water from the Big Laramie and all of the wells that are west of town and south of town. The city just acquired the well rights and the property from the Bath Ranch. These are all great supplies also. Whereas I think we're doing a good job projecting the Casper Aquifer, I don't think it's our highest priority right now. And I know that probably surprises a lot of people, but you have to really keep it in perspective. It's been predicted that we have enough water supply right now to more than quadruple our population well into the next century. So I think we need to keep those things in perspective as we look ahead. I think we need to put our efforts in other things that are more infrastructural to the city first.
Thank you. Sharon, same question to you.
Thank you. I believe clean water is absolutely essential to the health and the well-being of our community, as well as essential to our growth and development. It is why I have worked to update and work with the group updating the Aquifer Protection Plan, and why I have supported the purchase of both the monolith ranch or the maintenance of that and some of the changes that will better protect the water in the river, as well as the Hart Ranch, formerly the Bath Ranch. And it is a tremendous resource to our community, and we need to recognize that all around us, water is becoming an issue. It is interfering with the growth, the development, and the well-being of communities up and down the Front Range. And I'm just very grateful for the foresight and the proactive attitude of the city and the city guidance to protect our water so that we can move into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. William, same to you.
I'm rather unapologetic in my belief in the need for investment in renewables, whether that's solar, whether that's wind, whether that's electric vehicle charging stations. That's the way the world is moving. When it comes to water, I agree with almost everyone up here. What an incredible resource we have at our disposals, and what a privilege it is and an honor it is to live above the herd, so to speak, and have that as access to us. And it needs to be something that is cared for and monitored. I don't understand water protection and infrastructure to be different things, right? We need to be thinking about water protection as we're thinking about affordable housing and that infrastructure development and where it's going and how it's going, what it looks like, what direction it's going, and what sort of oversight we're having on that. Because all of these issues are interrelated. We cannot be thinking about housing the people in Laramie that need housing without also be thinking about how are we going to protect their public health and their public safety through water infrastructure. So,
thank you, William. Matt, same question to you.
It's a great question. After the last forum, a few of us sat outside talking about water, and it was brought up that a lot of people didn't know, like Paul had mentioned, that the majority of our water does come from the big Laramie. So I do like the sentiments that Paul had said, that are we focused too much on it? I wouldn't say we're focused too much on it, because we all want clean water for us and our children in the community. But it shouldn't just be the only priority. So just like William had said, it needs to, as far as infrastructure goes, one thing I also look at, and I'm not trying to do an aside here, but we also, not only do we need clean water, we don't have enough electricity to grow this community. We are way short on electricity, so we got to find ways to bring that in. We need to not just prioritize clean water. That should be near the top. So, but we have tons of clean water, like Paul had said, way into the next century. But let's look at some other things to help us grow too, and spend some time looking at those. And I agree with everybody's sentiment on here, so it's not like I'm going to come up with some new ideas. So I think Sharon came up with some great points also. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Bryan, same question to you.
Thank you very much. I was on council when we bought the Bath Ranch, and it was divided up into 3 areas because the Wildlife Audubon wanted a part of it, the Game and Fish wanted a part of it, and we got a part of it, and ours was for the water rights. And just like someone had said, we now have enough water, and we can never take all the water off these ranches. They have to be a functioning ranch. It's like on the monolith, which we got in the 60s and 70s, 1960s, 1970s, and have maintained it. We have a pivot out there, and we run water, raining or sunshine, because we must use our water rights. If we don't use them, we can lose them. So the Hart Ranch, we use a flood irrigation style, putting it on the grasslands to do things like that. And there's some history out there on that. If you ever get available to a ranch tour, they have an old stage stop, they have teepee circles, everything is out there. It is so much of our history out there. Carbon footprint. The automobile industry, I teach at Wyotech, if anybody didn't know that. We have, in the last 20 years, reduced the carbon footprint of a vehicle to where it's unbelievable. A truck now that drives through Denver, Colorado, puts out cleaner air than what it takes in. Yep. We have a possibility of a solar place out on our Monolith Ranch. Hope it comes to fruition.
Thank you very much, Bryan. Brett?
Thank you, and take it out of my time, but can you repeat the question? By the time we've gotten down here, it might have gotten muddied.
I think the gist of it is with regard to questions of the environment, whether it's the aquifer, carbon neutrality, et cetera, what priorities would you focus on that lives within the purview of council?
Awesome, thank you.
Did you see how I remembered my own question? We did it.
It was fun putting you on the spot for a moment. No, I think obviously the protections for the aquifer, both for the supply as well as the safety of that water, are something that I absolutely commend the current city council on. It's something that I've noticed has sort of become a theme in this election, and it's just to me, it's like that has been done, and I am sure there's maybe some more work that can be done, but it's really cool to kind of put a checkbox next to that and say, great work, city council. Now what's next? And I think to Mr. Lockhart's point, the utility electrical generation for our town won't support the around 3,000 housing units that Laramie quotes as being short. So that's a massive issue, and that's of course an issue that's going to have to be done in collaboration with the private industry. I think when it comes to utilizing our natural resources, wind, solar, those things that make the city of Laramie maybe sort of a leader in that space, I think that's worthwhile exploring. And again, commend the city council for already having done some of those things on the current city building that's just north of town. So there's a lot of work to be done in that space. I'd like to talk about the next steps because I don't think I've heard from a single resident of Laramie that they don't want clean water. So we can keep it that way and just keep moving forward.
Thanks, Brett. And I think you were the last one on that, right?
I think so.
Oh no, Jim.
Oh wait, I'm the last one.
Jim, you're the last one. Sorry. It's getting
some great
late.
ideas.
It's past my bedtime. No. Jim, go ahead.
Thank you. There is a lot of talk about the aquifer, and to commend the city council and also the partnerships that the city council has made with the county commission to really ensure that aquifer is protected, I think should still be at the forefront of conversations. We do have clean water now. We have water that's being protected, but that could change. If we're allowing developments to go on that aquifer that could harmfully impact the water in the future, that's a conversation that's important and critical now. Even if the water systems and the big Laramie feeding our water is healthy and clean now, that doesn't mean that can't change very fast and rapidly. So those conversations need to continue to happen and be on the forefront of the public's eye. Understanding where water comes from is huge. That's just one part of this question. I think when I think of how the city grows and the infrastructure, a lot of it's been said up here on the stage today, but I think it's diversifying how we generate energy, how we look to utilize our resources the most effectively is what I would be a proponent of in city council, and whether that's solar or wind, or really looking to the community to understand the values that we have and how we can generate those things is how we're gonna find solutions. I know we talk about the University of Wyoming being a player in a lot of the goings on of Laramie, and that's a great resource for the city to utilize research on, to understand how the ecosystem impacts our community, how we impact the ecosystem, how to understand renewable energies and diversifying those things. It's at our front door. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I just got a last minute thing. I was scanning to see if it was a question. I am going to ask, we don't have time to do a full other round of questions. So apologies, there's some great ones here that I didn't get to. But I am going to ask you all to think and to answer this next round in like 60 seconds or less. Adjust the timer. And if you don't need that much time, that's fine. You've had lots of opportunities through your campaign material and when you're going door to door to explain or to talk to people about why they should choose you. I'd like you to flip that and say, why are you choosing this? Some of you are raising children, some of you are enjoying retirement, some of you are working in careers that are demanding and meaningful in their own ways. What is it that compels you to take on this sometimes thankless job of public service? Paul, I think you get the first go at this. Again, it's not why you and my voters should vote for you, but what is your motivation? What is calling you to do this? And how might that help voters? Paul, you go ahead, and then we'll go on to Sharon.
Will we be doing closing statements too?
This is kind of it.
Is it? Okay.
So,
Well, I'll tie that into it then.
oh, you want me to just keep talking? Yeah, answer this question, and then we'll give you really brief closing statements. You
Sounds
know,
good.
I'm so flexible. You see how flexible I am? I just adapt. Go ahead, Paul.
I think I answered a little bit of this in my opening comments, so I'll glaze over that. One thing I do want to get to with my time is the last question with energy needed for our city too. It is a situation. I talked to a friend of mine at the Wyoming Business Council, and I asked him, why are so many of the cities around us getting these huge data centers that are generating a lot of great tax revenue for their cities? And the answer he came back very quickly with is Laramie just doesn't have the power resources to be able to do that. Whereas I think a city needs to work in conjunction with things like our business alliance and so forth for development, I think the big thing we really need to do is facilitate these groups and really work with them in making sure that they can move ahead. Groups like Brett's down the way that does economic development. We need to be a resource for them, not they be a resource for us. So one of the reasons I got in is really just the fact that I wanted to see those things begin to be facilitated within our city.
Thank you, Paul. Sharon, same to you, just in that 60 seconds. Why are you drawn to this type of service?
I've been a nurse since 1985. I am a retired professor of nursing, and throughout my entire life has been about taking care and service. My subspecialty was psych mental health clinical nurse specialist, and I have utilized that within my role on City Council. I have found that City Council has offered a vehicle for me to pull together all of the talents that I learned in academia, in nursing, in psych, to pull all of that together and apply it to the needs that we have in City Council. I have a knack for community building, for building coalitions, and throughout my history on council, I have a proven record of pulling people together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. William, why do this crazy thing? I mean, honorable thing. Go ahead.
I've been asking myself that every day since May. I do feel compelled to public service, and I'm not entirely personally sure if it's because of some state of demoralization about the world around me and a need to understand a way that I can contribute and try and make it better. I do believe that community and quality of life are inextricably linked, and that you get to choose to build your community and choose to build that quality of life. And this is the best way that I know how.
Thank you. Matt, same question to you. Go ahead.
Well, people have been asking me what you just said. Why are you doing this? Are you a glutton for punishment? So I love Laramie. I came to college here in 1988. And outside of 4 years, it's been my home. My wife and I did move away. And that's when we realized, you know what? Laramie's awesome. So we came back in 2011. And this community has supported me in my ventures for 30 some years, 25 years in the car business. This community was behind me and helped me grow my business and my sales in there, and then also with the human being. This community has had my back there, and I try to give back in philanthropic manners. But I think, and I truly believe that by being on the city council, it's a way for me to help this community keep growing. Because if we're not growing, we're going backwards, and I want to continue to grow this community. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Bryan, go ahead.
I wanted to do good for the community. There's a lot of times you came away from a city council meeting, you were so joyful and happy and said, it worked good tonight. We all did good tonight. And there's other nights you walk away that you're not so happy and things like that. My parents moved me here at a very young age, and they had a local business here for over 35 years. And it's no longer there. We got pushed out by the big box stores, but have stayed here, have worked a couple of different areas in the town. But I like Laramie. I want to see it stay Laramie. I see sometimes I feel we're kind of getting invaded from across the border. We're kind of getting some things pushed on us, and I'm going to do as much as I can for the many. I mean, it sounds like a corny thing. It was a line in the movie, but do what's good for the many and not the few. Make it so it's a good place for many people to be in Laramie.
Thank you, Bryan. Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, I've run a program with the American Legion called Boys State, and through the Boys State, we teach civics and civic engagement, democracy, and the understanding really of the bulk of what happens and impacts your day-to-day life happens at a local level, and I just think it's really a really great opportunity to run and do something for the community that I really care about, and I would say there's a lot of decisions made by city council, and if you go there on the busiest of nights, there's a small handful of folks in that room. It was said during the last forum we did that about 30 plus people showed up at that discussion that had to do with a parking lot in a potential apartment development downtown, and that's a fraction of 1% of the city of Laramie. And I talked to folks all day who have different ideas of what might benefit Laramie, and I endeavor to bring some of those ideas forward and provide kind of a space for that to happen, because city council meetings don't necessarily provide a really exciting thing for people to go to.
It's a whole other question. How do we spice up city council meetings? No. Jim, same question to you. Why are you wanting to do this thing?
Yeah, thanks. Finally, an easy question.
Is it easy?
It's the money. $150 a council meeting? Yeah, that's it. No, but in all reality, I love Laramie. Like everyone that's sitting up here and most of you in the audience. I've had an amazing opportunity in my life living here for 14 years. And, when you're being able to thrive in a community, you should do what you can to make that opportunity for someone else, and that's kind of one of my core values. And so it's a no-brainer. And when I'm out knocking doors and talking to people and seeing the connections that I'm making, in a nonpartisan race and just making friends, and that affirms that I want to be here. I love talking with people and hearing their issues and the successes of the city too. That's not talked about enough. There's a lot of things that are happening really well for a lot of people here. How do we continue that growth, and how do we make sure that fits for everyone? Those are hard questions, but leading with positivity and talking with folks, I've loved doing that, and I want to bring that to City Council.
Thank you so much, Jim. And Brett, I think you get the last word on this one.
I get the back cleanup. Well, I am running for city council because I love Laramie. I have loved the 32 years I have spent here, spent building a home here, and I want to give back to the community by improving the quality, integrity, and responsiveness of our local government. As I walk around and knock on doors, citizens tell me they feel that Laramie city government has become bureaucratic, opaque, unresponsive, and wasteful, and I don't want to see it go that way. I want to see if we can fix that. Recent incidents involving the parking lot or just the most recent council meeting where the city approved a letter of support for a developer who turned out to be a shell company operating out of a UPS store in Idaho. We really need to look at things carefully, consider what we do, and make sure that we do good for the city of Laramie. If you'd like me to serve on council, I'll listen to everyone regardless of political party and seek fair and practical solutions that work for Laramie, not feel-good hand-waving, not doctrine, not partisanship, but real solutions. So please vote for me and like-minded candidates, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you so much. Before I make some final announcements, can we have a round of applause for all of our candidates tonight? They did a great job. Hooray, hooray. I wanted to make sure that voters know that there are a different number of seats available in each of the wards. So in Ward 1, which is, they're kind of sitting backwards, I think, there are 2 seats available. So though you'll be choosing there from William, Sharon, Roxie Hensly, who is not able to be here tonight, and Paul Montoya. In Ward 2, there are 2 seats available, so you'll be choosing there between Jim, Brett, so confusing, and Melanie, who was not able to join us tonight. And then in Ward 3, there's 1 seat available, so you'll be choosing between Matt and Bryan for those. Early voting has already started. I'm assuming y'all haven't completed that because you're still here wanting to learn from these guys. But early voting is already open. The voter's guide will come out on Saturday, and as you all know, Election Day is November 5th. Please, whatever your political persuasion, help us turn out people to be engaged in democracy and vote this November. And I think Lynn has a final closing thought for us. After the forum today, folks can hang around and mingle. Just keep the good spirit of thoughtful engagement in that time afterwards. It's not the time to go zing them, okay? But please do get to know the candidates in that more informal setting. Lynn, go ahead.
Well, as we've told some of you when you said maybe you couldn't make it, that you can send a statement. And Roxie Hensly has sent a statement, although we weren't clear on how long. You can tell that I can't possibly read the whole statement. So I'm going to read the beginning and then sort of work my way through as to the topics. But I want to recommend that if you want to know about Roxie and her positions, they're very well explained on Vote 411 or in the printed version of the voter guide, because they're the same thing. So here goes. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to your forum. I believe, as you do, that the voter is entitled to full disclosure from candidates for public office. I applaud your efforts to disseminate that information and your encouragement to citizens that they exercise their right to the ballot. Unfortunately, I am unable to make the forum this evening due to prior commitment. So I am providing this intro to help you understand my reasons for seeking office. Laramie is home to Wyoming's only university. As such, Laramie, like nearly all other university towns, should be vibrant, innovative, cultural, entertainment, and technological epicenter of the state. In times past, it has been just that, but lately it has seemed to lose its edge. This is the reason I'm running for city council, because I believe Laramie's preeminence can and should be restored. At some point in the last 3 decades, city government, whether intentionally or not, has become hostile to business community. As a business owner in Laramie, I can tell you honestly that in my dealings with city government, I have found them to be less than cooperative in working for a solution to issues. Lots of reassurances, but little or no action. This must stop. All right, from this point, I'm going to just skip ahead. And she says, let me address some of the issues facing our community. First, affordable housing. And she goes on to say that the cost of affordable housing shouldn't be on the taxpayer. And she advocates for the same sort of thing that 2 others, I think 3 others maybe, are asking for, and that's to bring people together, form a panel, see if you can't make the cost of housing itself less expensive. Then she goes on to parking. She mentions that in all the towns she's ever been to of about the Laramie size, they always have a parking garage. And she thinks that it would be a big boost to downtown to have such a thing. Infrastructure. So she too wants to talk about the infrastructure and the basic city duties. And she makes a list. It's slightly different from the list that others have had. Snow removal needs improvement, water prices should be lower, police budget streamlined, roads should be better. The city should make a realistic plan to bring West Laramie up to the same service level as in the east. She talks about conservation, that it should be everybody's goal, but that we shouldn't focus on one over another. And lastly, city budget. The city budget is way too high. How do I know? Because none of the checks and balances present in the private sector are applied to city expenditures. Without those checks and balances, it requires great leadership to hold the line on budget increases and unnecessary spending. The council should not be a rubber stamp for the department budget requests. But like I said, this and more is on her Vote 411 site, and she explains herself very well there. So with that, we now know one more candidate, right? So has everybody got it? Ward 2, or Ward 1, 2 candidates. Ward 2, 2 candidates, and Ward 3, 1 candidate. And I thank you so much. What? What? If they want to learn about Melanie, that's where some more information would be. Oh, yes. So apparently, Melanie Vigil wasn't able to come on tonight. We saw her maybe briefly, something about her internet, and she and I think almost everybody else running for city council has done their due diligence and put down very thoughtful answers in Vote 411. So I recommend that you read the replies from people who weren't here tonight, and then read their replies as well. Everybody deserves your time. So again, thank you, and thank you. We'll see you again in 2026.
Wow, when I started on city council, you got $10 per meeting.
You think Matt did pretty good?
Yeah. That did pretty well. Yeah, I was on Zoom the last time. Hey, good to see you too, Will. Pleasure to meet you too. Yeah. Great. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
William, you're not going to shake my hand through the Zoom?
Sharon,
What's
so
up?
there is a housing task force going on? I hadn't heard about this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, please do.
Thanks, Sharon. Thank you. Brett, it was a pleasure being next to you again for the second time.
Yes.
Maybe more in the future. You never
Yeah,
know.
well, we'll see. Well, we'll see who winds up on council.
I know. It's exciting. So.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of my family members say you're crazy. You know, what are you doing trying out for this?
I know. Well, it's a lot of time, and I mean, $150 now, but a little more than when Mr. Shuster started at $10 per meeting. But I mean,
it doesn't even cover. It doesn't even cover your campaign expenses.
No, absolutely not. So yeah, I don't know.
Information.
I'm gonna find the Aurora. Oh yeah.
KP8 last time I looked. Right. Yeah. KP is a measure of atmospheric ionization.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's high. Yes.